Hello everyone and welcome back to Foot Forecast, and in today's video I'm going for my Europa League roundup for the British sides today. And the game I'm going to start off with is Celtic at home to Utrecht, and probably the most important game in today's lot for the British sides, because Celtic needed to win this game to qualify for the Europa League, and they got off to a great start in this game. Benjamin Nygren with the early goal for Celtic, a great cross by Tierney, and Kieran Tierney was great throughout in this game. But then it was a poor mistake from Utrecht to allow Celtic to go 2-0 up, a poor giveaway from the keeper playing out from the back. And it was a calamity of errors actually for Utrecht, because it resulted in them putting the ball into the back of the net after Nygren put the ball into the box. And then Celtic won a penalty which was converted from Engels, and from there Celtic were 3-0 up in this game. The penalty was given for a handball. I think that is one of those penalties where you only see it given in Europe. I don't think this would have been given in the Scottish League or like the Premier League, for example. And often what we see with European football, the penalties are a lot more strict, and I think that's what we saw in that penalty. Utrecht, despite being 3-0 down in the first 20 minutes, did manage to get themselves back into the game through De Wit. It was a good goal from him, a good finish off his right foot, but I did think he was given too much space and time to shoot the ball. And it was a great goal from outside the box from Blake to actually make it 3-2. And from there, I think Celtic was starting to get nervous, because they needed to win this game to qualify for the next round of the Europa League. But Trusty, 4 minutes later, did find the goal for Celtic. It was a great header from the corner to make it 4-2. I thought Trusty was great in this game throughout. And crucially, that means Celtic do qualify for the next round of the Europa League, the playoffs. They finished in 21st place, reasonably comfortable at the end. And now they'll either play Stuttgart or Ferencváros, which brings me on to the next game between Forest and Ferencváros. The first thing I want to discuss is the starting lineup from Forest, because I was interested to see what Sean Dyche decided to do in this game, and he went with sort of a rotated lineup as well as a reasonably strong lineup. He had Abbott starting in this game, Ryan Yates started in this game, who was excellent in this game for Forest. McAtee started. So there were a couple of changes. Morata came in for Murillo. So there were changes made for this game and an opportunity to rest some players. And it was a great win for this game for Forest. And the first goal that Forest scored was through an own goal. Yates played the ball across and it was put into the back of his own net. And then quickly after, Igor Jesus put Forest 2-0 up in this game. It was actually a great tackle by Ryan Yates in midfield to win the ball back. And then the ball fell to Igor Jesus and he did the rest. Sales, I thought, was unconvincing in the sort of last couple of minutes of the first half. And it was probably good for Forest that they managed to get into that game at 2-0. And then after half-time, Igor Jesus scored again for Nottingham Forest. It was a brilliant use of strength and a good volley from Igor Jesus. This is the sort of lineup I expected from Sean Dyche, because Forest had already qualified for the playoffs and they couldn't get into the top 8. Igor Jesus then scored again for Nottingham Forest. It was a brilliant use of strength and then a great volley. He actually had a chance early in the game to score, which meaning that could have been a hat-trick for him. He was brought off sort of 10 minutes after he scored this goal. And then the final moments, Enjoy won a penalty. And then the penalty was converted by McAtee, his first goal for Nottingham Forest. And overall, I thought Forest were excellent in this game and they deserved to win this game 4-0. So what does this mean for Nottingham Forest? Well, Forest have finished 13th place in the Europa League. A decent finish, but I think they'll be disappointed the fact that they haven't finished in the top 8. They probably would have backed themselves to do that at the start of the Europa League campaign. The campaign hasn't helped by the change in managers sort of constantly throughout it. So who will they play? Well, they will either play at Fenerbahce or Panathinaikos. If they get Fenerbahce, this could be an incredibly difficult game for Forest, because Fenerbahce have quite a lot of quality in their side. So then we're on to the next game, which is between Porto and Rangers. And this was always going to be a difficult game for Rangers, up against a very strong Porto side. They've only dropped 2 points in the Portuguese League in 19 games. They haven't been really good in the Europa League, but their record in the Portuguese League speaks for itself. But Porto started this game poorly, and Rangers actually went 1-0 up through Gassama, and it was a good goal from Gassama, but it was poor marking from a Porto defender. And then there's actually a Porto defender on the line who just needs to clear the ball off the line, but he fails to do this. Then Rodrigo Mora, though, does equalise for Porto. It was a pretty messy goal. And from there, Porto started to dominate in this game, and Fernandes actually made an excellent tackle for Rangers. And there was some discussion around should this have been a penalty awarded. I don't think it should have been. It was a hard tackle, and look, he took out some of the man, but he got a lot more the ball did Fernandes. It was poor initial defending, though, from Tavernier, letting Pepe get so easily past him. And Porto did eventually go 2-1 up. Once again, poor from Tavernier. It was a very scrappy goal, and he just needs to do better in that situation. He just simply needs to get the ball out. It ends up being a mess. He slips into Jack Butland, and it results in Mora converting the goal for Porto in this game. And then after Fernandes made that great challenge earlier, he eventually scored an own goal. They have to be especially disappointed considering that they actually started this game well, and the goals they conceded were terrible. It was 2 scrappy goals and an own goal for Rangers. Overall, this game, though, didn't matter for Rangers. And it wasn't because they were already through. It's because Rangers were already out and they could not qualify for the next round of the Europa League. So they bow out with a 3-1 loss to Porto away from home. So then we've got the next game, and it was between Aston Villa and Salzburg, and Aston Villa already qualified for the top 8. It was just where would they finish in the top 8. And I thought Villa may decide to rest in this game, but they went reasonably strong. They still started players like Watkins, Onana, who played, I think, 80 minutes after injury against Newcastle about 4 days ago. Buendia started this game. Sancho started this game. So there were first-team players in this Villa side, and Watkins actually picked up a really early hamstring injury, which is so frustrating for Villa. Thankfully, they have just signed Tammy Abraham, but he wasn't available for this game, which should give Villa some depth in terms of the front line. It is still a concern, though, for Villa losing their main number 9 for a pretty long-term injury, you would think. As well as this, Villa have got players like McGinn, Kamara, Tielemans is now out, a crucial injury for Aston Villa. Thankfully, they have just signed a midfielder in Douglas Luiz. But either way, these are crucial injuries for Villa. For a side that's trying to compete on multiple fronts and potentially or even for a Premier League title. And Villa had some early chances in this game, but it was a poor mistake to allow Salzburg to go 1-0 up, and it was Kanate who scored. Mings made a mistake playing out from the back, and then Lindelof failed to clear the ball off the line. Salzburg then went 2-0 up just after half-time, and I think Unai Emery was perplexed, but Villa got themselves back into this game. Rodgers given the impact that Villa needed off the bench to make it 2-1 off his left foot, and this completely changed the momentum of the game. Villa Park side to get behind Aston Villa, and from there Villa managed to find an equaliser through Tyrone Mings, who made up for that terrible mistake early in the game. There was a great ball in by Matty Cash, and then Villa's youth player Jimo Alaba had a great moment as he won the game for Aston Villa in the 87th minute. It was actually a very good assist by another young player for Aston Villa, Caden Young. A very good win for Villa considering the fact that they were 2-0 down. I don't think Emery would have been happy with them with the first half performance and the fact he had to call on a lot of his first team players to come on and save the game. He had to bring on Rodgers, Cash and Concert. Martinez had to make some very good saves in this game as well for Villa to keep them in it at points. I think some disappointing performances were probably Sancho and Elliott. I didn't think they were great in today's game. And Hemmings, despite being a youth player, he didn't really grasp his opportunity, and I think he'll be disappointed with his performance in that game. So where does this leave Aston Villa? Well, they finished second on the table, so they now know they will get a home second leg tie for every Europa League game until they eventually get knocked out or until they reach the final. And who could they potentially play? Well, they could play Red Star, Celta Vigo, PAOK and Lille. I don't think any of those games are actually pushovers. I think if you had a preference, you'd probably say PAOK in the round of 16, but Red Star away, for example, could be a very tough away game for Aston Villa. The good thing is they have the second leg at home. Let me know your thoughts on this Europa League roundup for the British sides, and if you enjoy this, it'd be great if you subscribe to the channel as well as liking the video.